I've been promising to show you. Always go now, because I'll only be here for a short while.
Don't you trust me?
I trust you, Lily. Nothing is more magical. As long as they roam the earth, evil can never harm the pure of heart.
Anarchy ruled the land. The wicked came here to sacrifice.
That's right. Act like you know.
Very on brand. That's the least sensical trailer that we've seen, I think, in this so far out of everything. I leave that going, what the fuck did I just like? What is this movie?
Yeah.
Which is very similar to how you feel after watching the movie. So
yeah,
it works out great.
It's on brand.
It's on brand.
All right, welcome to Movie Night Extravaganza, episode 55. We are talking about Legend, 1985. Fantasy Ridley Scott fever dream, pretty much. And it makes just about as much sense as any other, I think, fever dream that I've ever seen.
Or Ridley Scott, Jim Henson cosplay.
But I feel like I would have enjoyed it more with Jim Henson cosplay. I'm not gonna lie. If some Muppets had showed up, I would have been far more interested in this movie. But only Tom Cruise is the one Muppet would be hilarious. But
you took exactly where I was gonna go with it. Which I was just gonna say, of course, the only Muppet in here is pantsless, which is Tom Cruise. But,
yeah, which as Muppets generally are. I don't they make jokes about that they make jokes about that in the Muppets. I think like Kermit is always pantsless, and they're like, "You're not gonna wear pants?" So I don't know. Nobody pointed out that he was pantsless in this movie, which was a little weird. But all right, let's go with it.
Yeah, he's like waist deep in snow.
Introducing the panel, we have our unicorn co-host, J. Andrew World, illustrator. Well, because your name is Ugly One-Horned Mule, but I'm on the side of light in this exchange, so I'm not gonna call you that. So, illustrator, Ben Burgess, artist, and Movie Night Extravaganza co-host. How's it going today?
Pretty good. I didn't quite finish rewatching, seeing the director's cut, which drove me nuts. The colors in the director's cut, I will say, superior than the original. But that's the only thing.
Do you think that on streaming platforms in Europe the cuts are different because there's the US cut and the international cut?
I would imagine so.
There's like 5 cuts.
Yeah.
Then there's the Brexit cut where they blame it on the foreigners.
Almost as bad.
All right, Platonic Reversal host and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, Conan Neutron, co-host of the show, sparkly as always.
I am the Goblin Bro tonight. That's as good as you're gonna get out of me.
We have, of course, Lady Darkness. I'm Kristina on Twitch. I think Lily, if she had chosen to go with Tim Curry's, Darkness character rather than kind of just, she seemed like she kind of bailed halfway through. Like she didn't decide. Like she couldn't decide. Like, well, this might be cool. I don't have a lot going for me right now.
What
But,
an idiot. No offense, but yeah. The things I do for you guys, I swear to God, I gotta give the people what they want.
Exactly.
And they want more horns, more horns.
Yep.
We're talking about it more and more, folks.
All right, and introducing for the first time, Jagi Lamplighter, who is the author of The Unexpected Enlightenment of Rachel Griffin, as well as the Prospero's Daughter trilogy, has also written a number of short stories, articles on anime, and is the author/assistant of the Badass Fairy series.
Thank you. And thank you guys for having me.
So I guess going through this, I want to know how much everybody enjoyed this movie, how much it made sense to people. I personally, I think that it was a fun movie. I liked looking at it, but I didn't necessarily find the story as engaging as I wish I did. So whoever wants to go first.
Oh, this is probably one of Ridley Scott's, like, I wouldn't say worst films, but like it wasn't his one of his great masterpieces. I do feel like he was trying to get in on the 80s fantasy type of wave, as you would. I mean, visually the movie's stunning, but the plot, I'm just here for Tim Curry. That's it.
No, I think that's right on point with what I was thinking. Is that visually this is a perfect like sick day movie. I always call it, right? Like where you're like, oh man, I don't really want anything too heavy right now. Well, don't worry, this is as light as air. But it looks amazing, right? Like the visuals are great, cinematography is awesome, the direction's actually really good. Half the characters are obnoxious or nonsensical, and there's just cocaine decisions up and down the line. But I mean, visually, it's really beautiful to look at. It's maybe like one of the best in class.
Yeah,
The characters don't seem like they're introduced either. Like every time
there,
someone's like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you don't know me? I'm the Gump, and it's like. Yeah. Can we get a little backstory on this? Like,
yeah,
he's the Forrest Gump. Come on,
we just have to like put it like it. We just have to use our imagination to like assume what these characters are all about and their backstories and whatnot. But I'm like, I can't do that though.
And part of that depends on we already talked about the theatrical cut versus the director's cut. And as far as like the amount of exposition and introduction and stuff like that, you get a bit more of that with the director's cut. Like you get to know a little bit more like how these creatures and people like interact with each other and like why things are the way they are, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also just like scenes like, oh, you did it for love? Oh, okay, cool. Let's drink some elderberry wine.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's like doom the world. But you did for love.
What?
Chill.
Like, oh, for love. Oh, you showed you wanted to get laid and you showed the girl that there were your. Oh yeah. All right. Let's
take a drink. Let's go. You know,
I mean,
it's like, oh, all right.
I totally would, but that he was not the right casting choice for this film.
So I think the movie is half really good and half really awful. And it's half really good because the actual dialogue for the fairy creatures and the goblins is like spot on for old myths, you listen to some of the individual lines, you're like, that's really good. They really got this. But then it doesn't quite go where it should go. And I wonder if part of it is that stories with demons and temptation are actually a different genre than fairy tales.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's two genres running into each other in this movie. I also wonder if I would have enjoyed it better with no word crawl at the beginning.
Yeah, they do kind of run.
Cut does not have the word crawl at the beginning.
Yeah, I was gonna say theatrical cut does the exposition. You're right. Yeah.
It sets up a mood that's a little different than a fairy tale mood. Yeah. And I kind of think I might have enjoyed it more, if that wasn't there. So I can see why maybe the director took it out.
Very reminiscent of like the Black Cauldron in a sense.
Yeah, similar vibes.
This is also going on, I think, around the same time as the tail end of the Star Wars trilogy, and
because
I think it's
word crawls were in.
Yeah, it's very popular to kind of have that word crawl going on at the beginning of a movie where it's like, hey, we're gonna make sure that there's something that's there for you right before going into this new magical world. I don't object to
word crawls. I just think that the moral background universe presented in the word crawl is a different mood than a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It kind of took away a little bit.
And there's kind of a surprising amount that you have to just immediately absorb before you just get dumped in. Like,
Yeah.
and it's happening. All right.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of that had to do with the really aggressive editing choices made by the studio and whatnot. But we can't actually fully blame that just on the studio, because it's not like the director's cut has like that much more composition to it, frankly. Like, you get to see like certain things longer. Like, it doesn't feel as like, oh, they're over here now. Now they're over here. Now they're over there. It doesn't have that feel to it as much, but there is still a lot of like, oh yeah, I'm so-and-so. Everyone knows who I am. You know, what? Nobody knows who you are. What
You
are
guys
talking
don't
about?
know Brown Tom?
Yeah, come on.
I kept thinking this. I'm like, why in the world is he the Gump and not Puck?
It doesn't even make sense. Exactly.
Because if he said it was Puck, I would have been like, oh, Puck, I knew who that is.
Yeah, I know who that is.
They
Exactly.
acted like I knew who it was, and it wasn't Puck.
Yeah, it's like it's someone else entirely. And it's like,
Oh,
okay,
it's a
now I'm
Forrest
just
Gump.
confused.
That's all it
You know,
is.
copyrighted or something.
It's there to make the joke. Years late, before the movie came out.
I appreciate
He
your
said-
diligence in making that reference not once but twice. But yeah.
We're gonna go
It'll
for the
catch
magic
on
3
eventually. More and more people are talking about it. No, but I think that one thing that this movie also suffers from is in every kind of fantasy movie, in every fantasy story, I think there always needs to be like an audience corollary, right? Like, you need, like, the audience kind of needs to be represented by one character. And I
here.
yeah, so I think this movie does a very bad job with that, because it seems like, number one, the two characters that are both supposed to be kind of like an audience corollary, I guess, or like Lily when she first touches the unicorn, and and you're kind of getting that from her perspective, but also like Jack, and who doesn't know Jack, like literally doesn't know jack shit about what's going on in the woods he lives in, and it's like, I don't know. I don't feel like either of those characters did a very good job as like an audience.
Like, they don't quite make sense, because if he's a forest boy, why isn't the story about what a forest boy could do?
Yeah, his friendships with goblins and elves and shit like that.
He doesn't seem to have any until that day.
He just is squatting around all over the place. That's like seems to be the sum totality of his skill set. Is lots of squatting.
Yeah.
But she's supposed to be elated, because the when she goes to the cottage, she's told, "Oh, you shouldn't be here. You're a higher class girl."
Yeah.
If so, why is she attracted by jewels? I mean, if she's actually a rich girl, then the jewels, I mean, when she was offered the dress and stuff, why is that interesting? If they set up she was a poor girl and she saw the jewels and she was overcome, I think that would have made a lot more sense.
It also, the main action of this movie seems to be class related, in that her touching the unicorn seems to kind of be like a like, everyone's like, hey, don't do that, and she's like, listen, I can do whatever the fuck I want. I'm pretty high up in this world. And
She's
then
a
she touches the unicorn.
essentially.
And then but then everyone's still kind of defending. Everyone seems very like they're defending her throughout this. Like, I mean, obviously Tom Cruise is.
And you just put your finger on one of the things that's missing, which is, in a fairy tale, you're told what not to do, and then someone does it, and then a disaster happens.
Right.
Yep.
There's no scene where anybody goes, no human should touch the unicorn, before she does it.
All you have,
like Tom Cruise is trying to. He's like, hey, maybe, and she's like,
She
listen.
runs out there. But I mean, they don't tell the audience first.
Yeah.
but you do have the slight comedic relief of the goblins chilling out and being, look at that ugly one-horned mule, like, and it's like, what are these guys like? What's going on? Like, what? And then it's like, and they're there because they were tasked by darkness to kill the unicorn, right?
Yeah.
Like that's their whole deal. But they're just like lamping. They're just like, spying on the whole scene.
Where's the scene where the goblins go, if a mortal girl touches it, we can kill her?
Exactly. Like all the
You know,
like,
it's like they show up by chance. They're not even happy she's there.
Something was missing from
Well,
the whole
they-
formula.
That's actually one of the better parts of the director's cut, where they actually are following Jack through the woods. They do set that up better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's done perfectly; it's still flawed, but it's a better setup in that the intro there to get you're not just all of a sudden cut. Oh, they're all there.
that
Everyone
that
was
is,
there. Everyone was watching. Just the unicorn gets touched. That's what.
For me, the director's cut versus the theatrical cut, it's about like a half a star better for quality, but almost just goes back down because I just don't like the music as much. I think the Tangerine Dream score is just far superior because it sounds more otherworldly as opposed to like
Absolutely.
The other one sounds more like, hey y'all, fantasy movie.
Yeah, and it's serviceable and it's there when it needs to be, but that Tangerine Dream score really does make it feel like this, a bad trip that you're on, like you ate some weird mushrooms before putting on a movie, and all of a sudden you're like, man, this is the weirdest Black Hawk Down I've ever seen.
Suddenly you're drinking elderberry tea with elves. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I will say that the thing that they do set up, I guess, in the first scene in the theatrical cut, because I didn't see the director's cut. I only saw the theatrical cut. I didn't even attempt. I was like, what can they really add to make this story like make more sense? Like,
Lily's not like every other princess. She hangs out with the pores.
Like, but it seems like darkness in that first scene is like, you have to give the unicorn some kind of bait, and then Blix is like, what be this bait? You teach me, and he goes, innocence, which would imply that she's kind of the innocent one, and the unicorn comes close to her because she senses that or whatever, and then they're able to
trim that out in the director's cut.
Yeah, that's one of the things I don't understand of the many.
And they got rid of the green glowing teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's certain decisions where, and also like for the director's cut, it almost seems like when you really get to lay into Tim Curry's stuff, there's more of it, but it's so far at the end, you're like, it feels like a different, like it's like an add-on. We're like, oh, this is a cool sequel to this movie.
Yeah.
With this character that we never saw for like an hour and a half.
How could you?
I mean, the innocence is traditionally how you get a unicorn. So, that's perfectly fine. But the problem is, in order to make her innocent, they make her not be told she shouldn't touch the unicorn. But that makes her innocent, which means she hasn't done anything wrong, which means she has no character arc.
Major plot hole.
There's no place to go. And Jack also has no character arc. I mean, he doesn't learn or do anything.
Well, that's why I like the European version, because I think that's the one where he basically dumps her and then goes off in the woods.
Oh, really?
As you do,
I mean, if I had a nickel for every girlfriend I dumped like that.
I will say though, I found
I'd have a nickel. No.
I found that like Mia Sarah, because this was her movie debut. Like I forgot. Like I'm like, wait a minute, she's the girl from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, she's Sloane in her next role, right? It's like the next year or something like that.
No, she was. I think this movie was her film debut.
Yeah,
I think the next one after that is and
she actually did a decent job of trying to do like a accent, which was great. Like it was almost like Mid-Atlantic ish, but like Tom Cruise can't do an accent to save his life. I'm like, what are you trying to do?
The only accent Tom Cruise can do is the is the Les Grossman. And I'm not gonna play it again because I played it during our wrap up and it got taken out. But when he's like, playa in Tropic Thunder.
I just want to point out too that a good piece of exposition, which is I don't mind a character announcing like reasons like why something is happening, is when they're talking about the princess and Blunder says, I even looked this up to make sure I got the quote right. She was so sweet I could eat her brains like jam. That was a line I actually appreciated. That was
I liked that one too. I
remember that when I saw it as a kid, which by the way I liked it way better as a kid because I apparently was far less discerning.
Yeah.
I like that everybody in this movie seems to want to eat everybody else.
It's just constantly, yeah.
Yum.
Like, they'll turn us into barbecue.
Back when movie meant something.
It makes me wonder though if Ridley Scott got really high and was just like hungry while writing this and was just like,
you know what? That's probably
I'm hungry as fuck. Let me just keep trying to write these things. There's also a weird combination of the Meg character, like the in the swamp, seems both hungry and horny. Like she
like it could go either way.
Yeah,
or maybe both.
In the director's cut, right?
Yeah, there is more. I don't remember. I obviously didn't care enough to retain the information, but there is more of that character. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit more. It's Tom Cruise. It's showing that Tom Cruise's character Jack has a little more intelligence because he seems like the stupidest person. Well, the second stupidest person in the movie.
Which is believable. I mean, Tom Cruise throughout the 80s does seem like the stupidest person in every movie he's in. It was a little bit less believable in some ways when we watched Edging Tomorrow, and he's like the one that he figures stuff out really fast, and it's like, are you a fast learner? I've never seen that displayed in any other context. Like,
but that makes sense for that character because that character's ill-equipped otherwise.
I just mean Tom Cruise as beautiful.
Oh, you mean the
idiot.
actor?
Like,
okay,
the actor Tom Cruise is beautiful idiot. Like,
but I actually would say that I think he's perfectly cast in that way because Jack is. Yeah, well, it's just naive. He's like this naive character that doesn't really know nothing about nothing, and like hangs out drinking elderberry wine with a bunch of little forest creatures and stuff. All right.
One moment that I noticed this time watching it, because I watched it last night and I watched it today. Well, I watched it twice yesterday, actually, trying to see if I missed something or if I was just not understanding something about this movie. So I watched it today, and one moment that I realized when he's talking about the weapons, he's like, I know nothing of weapons, which would make sense if you're just kind of some guy like hanging out in the forest, but
just squatting in a forest.
Yeah,
so much squatting in this movie.
If someone hands you a sword, you can you can very easily go, oh, you're supposed to cut with this. You're supposed to slice. And he finally uses the sword against Meg and hits her with the sword and then goes, I did it. And there's like this weird moment where he's celebrating the fact that he understands how a sword works.
Yeah, well, he dropped it before the director's cut.
Congrats.
He drops it, but I couldn't figure out when he dropped it. Because there's a scene where I want him to use it. I'm like, where's his sword?
Well, it's actually the director's cut. That's the strength there. He pulls up the shield and he can't quite get the sword out because Meg's leaning on the shield and he's trying to use the shield to distract her. And then she takes the shield away. He draws the sword out and then he drops it. And then he has to get it out of the water. And then she sees that he has the sword and he just swings it like haphazardly and accidentally cuts her head off.
What happens after? Because when he's down, in the kitchens or wherever they are later, he doesn't have it. Where does he lose it?
It's called an error.
He loses it in a hole.
I wondered if he lost it when
there we go.
When they slid down. I mean, but I didn't see the shield. I saw it kind of fly off. The sword, I never saw it go. Maybe it happened.
Or IMDb calls them goofs.
Right, exactly.
So who watched it? Who watched it on Amazon and who watched it on YouTube? Because I watched it on YouTube because my Amazon account's not working right now, and they usually point out like the continuity errors or the goofs or everything in the. Did anyone look at like how many there were or like?
I just watched it on Amazon.
If you pause on Amazon, there's usually a list of like continuity errors. There's a list of like goofs. They give you all this trivia, which I've always. I mean, I'm not a fan of Amazon as a company, but like the Amazon Prime Video app, I've always appreciated that they tell you who's in the scene. And
we had who's in the scene, which actually was quite interesting because I actually would never have guessed that the main goblin was a woman.
I didn't know that.
Not that it matters. It just was I didn't know. Matter. And I was like, hey, isn't that interesting? Her name was Alice.
More female goblins.
There we go. More female goblins. Let's go.
That's what
girl
the
boss goblins.
Yeah, I mean, well, and as we mentioned, there's so many characters that feel like they need no introduction. So like, it's nice to have that. I've seen this movie 3 times. I saw it as a kid in the theater, which I retained none of that, and then when I saw it as an adult later, I saw the director's cut because I was like, hey, I bet this is gonna be a better movie with the director's cut, and I was like, was it? And then I saw it the other day, which is the theatrical cut, which was on the Bezos company, and I did not look at like a single piece of extra information because I was like, that's enough. That still felt long to me.
So much confusion.
Well, they might have just given up on this one and gone like, hey, we don't need to put the goofs in because a lot of times it's like really classic movies. Like, I remember watching 2001: Space Odyssey, which is probably like one of the greatest achievements in cinema at the time. Sure. You know what I mean? And they loved like putting the trivia in and being like, well, actually, in this scene, you see this in this cut, like this shot, and you don't see it in the next shot. And it's like, all right, well, this is just kind of breaking down the small flaws, in one of the most.
This movie had so many flaws.
There's like
overwhelmed. The word tells you it can't tell you with spelling words anymore because there's too many.
The track just says, "We're as confused as you are."
I wouldn't want to work at Amazon, but it kind of
God,
like
imagine
knowing
having
that
job.
knowing that someone's job is to watch movies and write that shit down. I'm like, oh fuck, that's the career that I wish I had. You're just sitting there watching movies and you're
Yeah.
like, trivia. That's probably like the one good Amazon job.
Like Squirrel Preacher, trivia guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I feel bad for the people who do adult films and they have to do the subtitles.
Oh, that's no.
Ooh, baby, give it to me. Yes, give it to me.
Hey, I didn't order a pizza. Well, there's a pizza here at your door. Oh, now let's have sex.
Grunting
Hell yes,
intensifies.
let's have sex.
We have extra.
Maybe they just use one of those closed caption systems that tries to figure it out.
If I may suggest, the David Lynch Twin Peaks: The Return. It's worth watching with the subtitles because someone clearly was a fan, and you get to see a lot of like whooshing intensifies and like really like fun stuff along those lines. Like it's somebody definitely was like, I'm into this. I'm gonna make some art out of this, and it's pretty great.
I was watching my neighbor Totoro last night, and
That's so good.
it is so good. But the some of the captions in it are amazing. Like one of the ones that I noticed were like second instrument joins in when they're playing they're playing like the flute noises, and like I was like, oh shit, like this is probably like one of the more fun movies to do the subtitles for, because I remember working for Michael Brooks. I was supposed to help out when he did his Big Lula interview, and everything kind of had to be transcribed, and it ended up Brian Mayer, who kind of put it together, did that part of it. I didn't have to, but I was trying to research into like how that's kind of done, and I guess there are transcription services where you can just kind of put it in and it does it for you. But like, you know, then you're kind of leaving it to the mercy of like word translations to the mercy of somebody else, and
you see that often with anime where they got it wrong.
I wondered.
And you just know. I mean, that's not the word that they were actually saying.
Yeah.
I wonder what they would have done. Like, you know how there's probably different versions, like in different languages of this film. How whoever did Tim Curry's, like German, would sound like as Darkness.
I'll be back.
Because German is a very aggressive sounding language.
Yeah, ich spreche Deutsch 3 Jahre nach der Oberschule.
Yeah,
well, actually sound kind of good.
And like his voice, there's so much resonance in his voice that I wonder.
Ich bin ein Berliner.
It just sounds like Rammstein, as it turns out. Yeah.
Du hast, anyway. But I just wonder, like, how much.
Du hast mich. Like, I love Tim Curry so much.
Is so soft.
I know. He's what makes this movie work.
I saw a thing a couple of months ago where it was like you said, you can tell a lot about a person about what they know Tim Curry from. And I've been thinking ever since that about that, because he is in a really wide range of things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say the one that always comes to mind to me first, if it's not Legend, is the Muppet
Treasure Island.
Treasure Island, yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
That's where I knew Tim Curry from. Before I knew Rocky Horror Picture Show existed.
For me, Rocky Horror, then it.
I was waiting for
like 7
chance
seeing
to
those
speak,
films.
but yeah, like his Pennywise is quite good. Like it's that's another.
I'm glad that he's able to, like, I mean, for those who don't know, like, wonder where Tim Curry's been. He suffered a stroke back in 2012, I believe.
Yeah.
And so he's been doing he's wheelchair bound, unfortunately. He does conventions, he signs autographs, he does like
he did have a big announcement that something's coming.
Oh.
He's got an announcement later this year.
I hope it's not another stroke.
I'm dead, folks. No.
Oh God, no.
I don't think you get advance notice of those, Forrest. But maybe you do.
Tim Curry for us, Forrest.
But
y'all don't have the cardio app.
Follow Tim Curry on social media because you might find out something interesting. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
It's exciting that something might be coming.
But I'm glad that he's like more, because he never really talked about like most of like his roles, especially Pennywise. Like you could not find anything on him discussing Pennywise until like a few years ago.
Well, another thing is that
he didn't stop.
And even now he also talks about Legend a lot too.
Which is, we've talked around it, but we have not actually discussed Darkness at all, other than like.
And I have clips queued up for that part of it. There's a 15-minute small documentary that they did interviewing Ridley Scott, and well, I'm not going to watch the full 15 minutes, but
I figure not. I was just
I pulled a couple clips from that, and I'm one thing that happened, I guess, is that the hell set that's smoking the entire time caught fire, and so I have a clip for later on, like towards the end of the show, about Ridley Scott, I guess, was just kind of editing and doing whatever, and then that whole set caught fire. And I think Ridley Scott's obviously most known for his sets, right? Like Alien, you know, we talked about how much Alien kind of is this like almost encapsulated world where it's like everything is so beautiful in that movie. And this movie, I think, is what happens when Ridley Scott is allowed to, you know, create a movie that's not good, but still retains that, like, the set pieces, or not. You know,
it's only good if you care about story.
It's really beautiful, and it's
it looks amazing.
Really enjoyable. It's just that it doesn't. It's like it doesn't go together. It's like separate parts are good, but Tim Curry's character, I think he does a really good demon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the one thing
with the dump and stuff, but he sure has the character spot on.
Yeah,
and that's the one thing. Even people that have universally negative reviews of this are like, "Oh, this movie is terrible." Tim Curry was great though. Everyone.
Every movie with Tim Curry in it. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Oh, Tim Curry definitely stole the movie.
Every movie with Tim Curry, as they say, every movie with Tim Curry fucks. It absolutely fucks.
It does.
But bringing up the question, like, about you know, it says a lot about you, where you know Tim Curry from. This cues up this part of this this clip or this documentary, because Ridley Scott does say where he knows Tim Curry from, and it's where you'd expect he knows Tim Curry from. I mean, it's this movie was in 1985, so of course Rocky Horror Picture Show is on. You know,
not Annie.
But
oh god, we don't talk about Annie.
You gotta love who directed that, by the way. But anyway, that's a different discussion. Tim Curry.
I am the Lord of Darkness. I require the solace of the shadows and the dark of the night. Sunshine is my destroyer. All this shall change.
As Ridley and I continued to talk about each and every character for the film, we would always come back to the most important one, which was darkness. After exploring the possibility of doing it as a griffin, Ridley then realized that it would probably be best to have an actor obviously involved in this, because there's so many dramatic scenes, and some of the best scenes in the movie are actually Darkness's scenes with the actress Mia Sara.
I thought better be sexual, very sexy, this guy. So it better be a satire, half goat. And that was the brief. And he came back with this idea of this red creature with these almost water buffalo horns.
There's been different attempts at making the devil personified in many different films throughout the years. I actually felt that none of them ever lived up to what my expectations of what the devil would be. And so this is actually probably one of my greatest opportunities in my film career to create this character.
Darkness is a very difficult guy to cast because his physical requirements and they're also grand, dramatic, melodramatic requirements, operatic capability, and all but opera short of singing, right? And I always remembered Rocky Horror Show. And I thought, well, it's absolutely nothing to do with this. That's a brave thing to do that he did. Really brave.
We are all animals, my lady.
Damn right.
That was cool. That was interesting.
I mean, I think that even though he's not explicitly the devil, probably best depiction of the devil in movies, right?
They-
We can all
they-
agree on that.
Yeah.
They use him all that like darkness look all the time in like other like media.
So ripped off. Yeah,
So I'm like,
absolutely.
what?
Tenacious
I'm like,
D. Tenacious D as the devil. It looks exactly like that. I think.
Yeah.
in Pick a
How about
Destiny.
that commercials that Ryan Reynolds did, where he the devil starts dating 2020?
Oh yeah.
I did not see those. I didn't.
It sounds
I've never seen that
hilarious.
going around the internet. I was like, wait a minute, that looks familiar.
But yeah, this depiction of that archetype has become something that we automatically think of, oversized horns and all, right?
Yeah.
Like that
No,
has become.
that fucking archetype. Sorry, every time
But
there's
it
an
is.
archetype on this season, I've had to do the Jordan Peterson voice.
Yeah, I don't understand why you have those two linked, but it's a perfectly fine word, so I'm going to keep using it, and I guess we'll keep.
Also-
using
It is a good
impression.
word.
I know
Stories.
that we're gonna talk about the makeup, but Tim Curry basically was like, when he did it, he was like, no fucking heavy makeup. You guys saw what I had to go through with Legend. None
Yeah.
of that. No. Basic clown makeup, please.
I mean, they were putting that on with like a steam shovel. I mean, Jesus. Like,
Yeah. The
that's
makeup is
a lot.
amazing and not just him. The fairy creatures also. The goblins and the little fairy guys, they look really good.
Yeah.
Billy Barty and the other guys.
Like
And-
it's
and-
believable, like as like what they're supposed to be.
And Robert Picardo was Meg, the Swamp Lady.
And Swamp Lady was pretty creepy.
Meg
and looks a lot like
Mucklebones?
old pictures. Of,
Yeah, Meg Mucklebones, the was the hologram doctor from Voyager.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I love him. Wow, that's hilarious.
I mean,
Um,
this did get nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup, I believe.
Which
I
is
would not be
that,
surprised.
and like set design or cinematography would be like the best things it could be nominated for,
Right?
because those things are objectively fantastic.
Yeah. No,
Isn't
you're
that little
so
clip you just showed us?
story flaws aside, like it's a dazzlingly beautiful movie, and it's been really funny to read some of the criticisms of it that are like, no, this is like a dazzlingly beautiful, incredibly like the set design is incredible. The
But
set
what is it
pieces,
about?
yeah, but like so people be like, I did not like this movie, but also it was very well, like it looks very good.
You have
It's
like
Tim
everyone
Curry.
gives it props for how like awesome it looks, right? Even
Yeah.
when they're like, this was nonsense, but it looked cool.
Yeah.
My husband kept stopping and like we'd have to get up and do something. We'd come back and he'd like be like, that could be a picture. I mean, that's like a poster. And it was not just
Yeah.
one shot, but many shots, particularly before they get underground. But, in the early, we just like
Yeah.
the hill,
Like if
the
it's-
swamp or whatever it was. It just looked like one poster after another.
Like if it's a role-playing game book, just all these screen caps of the
Yeah,
movie could be
yeah.
like the illustrations.
The director's cut is actually the colors like stand out even better. I will say like that is like one of the one reason to watch the director's cut is it's just for the colors.
Colors are better, music is worse, and it's a lot longer, or it feels a lot longer.
Yeah, but you got more Robert
At least
Picardo.
to me. Yeah.
So continuing on with this documentary thing that they did on it, this is the continuation of the Tim Curry part of this, and
Let's just talk about Tim Curry for the rest of the time.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I think Tim Curry is someone who's gotten famous for putting everything into every role that he's in, right? Like his
Yep.
like you could be in a like Muppet Treasure Island is a perfect example.
Yeah,
Like
he's
it's,
great
it's
in
a
that.
movie. It's a movie that you don't need. You don't need the Muppets to
Right.
remake Treasure Island. Like it's
Tim
a
Curry.
crossover that doesn't need to happen.
Well,
But the fact that Tim Curry puts everything into that role and is like so incredible at it is like, holy shit, this is like a perfectly cast Muppet movie. Like that's
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
It's
So
just-
it's funny that I think in this movie Tim Curry is doing the heavy lifting, because on the other side of it you have Tom Cruise, who I'm not saying Tom Cruise is like a bad actor, but it's never like you're like, oh, that Tom Cruise performance specifically blew me away.
Yeah,
You're like,
it's just Tim
no.
Curry's that
Yeah.
blows us
I
away.
was really
So
impressed.
it is
with
light. It's light and dark almost, right? Like it's
Yeah.
yin and yang. Like Tim Curry as someone who literally pulls these movies like out of the dirt into like a to a point where movie podcasts talk about it. And then
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, who every time I talk about Tom Cruise, I'm like, yeah, he was in the movie. Like,
Well, but again, I'm gonna. I can't believe I'm saying this sentence. In defense of Tom Cruise, the light and
Oh,
dark
yeah.
aspect of this is huge, right?
Yeah.
And so part of Jack's whole thing is that he's a very like pure, naive soul, whereas Darkness is very worldly, very cynical, very
Which is
like.
why
So
I'm like, Lily, you picked the wrong guy.
I think Jack does a good Jack for what Jack has been presented. You could complain, we wish the character had more depth, but as the innocent Forrest boy, he did an innocent Forrest boy. You know, I thought.
You know what he's been presented with? Jack. That's what he's been.
Well done.
I really liked what Ridley Scott said about how brave Curry was in Rocky Horror Picture Show, because of course I've always known about Rocky. I mean, it seems to me like I've always known about it. You know what I mean? Looking back, it's like it's just a thing, Rocky Horror Picture Show. But the concept of thinking of before it was done and volunteering to be the guy who did it, when today there's lots of stuff like that.
But there was nothing like that at the time. Yeah. And he had to like be like, I am going to full force own this.
Right.
Yeah. Like I'm going to go full Greta Garbo for what I'm going to do here. Right. You know, just like, we're going to do this.
Which kind of destroyed Tim Curry's like, so he a lot of his roles since then have been kind of running away from the fact that, because he was with Rocky Horror Picture Show, like as someone that's loved Rocky Horror Picture Show since the first time I saw it, since like, you know, even hearing about it, he was with Rocky Horror Picture Show when it wasn't Rocky Horror Picture Show, when it was just Rocky Horror Show. He was the person that opened up on the West End as like a stage play that nobody was really even paying attention to or nobody cared about.
He's one of the few actors who've done the like stage production and the film production.
Yeah. So, but by the time that was over and everyone's like Rocky Horror Picture Show, Rocky Horror Picture Show, it was, and he was getting other roles, he kind of ran away from it. He's like, this is something that's taken over my life for a decade to the point where I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, like, there's even like rumors that the reason that he got kind of heavier as time went on is because he didn't want to be cast as like this, you know, in that kind of role anymore. He's like, I don't want people to even find me attractive because.
Don't worry, Tim, you're still attractive.
No, but like, you know,
it failed.
I had never thought before about how much of the movie, because I think of it more as kind of the camp, but how much of it is actually his performance that makes it worth.
And he's incredible. It's like that's an incredible role, and it's like, but someone like Tim Curry who's really good at acting, right? Like he's amazing in every performance he does. I could understand how that like iconic role, you're like, well, I'm not just Dr. Frankenfurter.
I can do other things. Yeah.
I'm not just a horny, like a horny bisexual icon. I'm so much more than that.
I'm also a horny, probably bisexual demon.
Wait, there was a film of a TV show of a live production of Rocky Horror Picture Show with Anthony Head playing.
Oh,
really?
I must say he was surprisingly good.
Well, I think Craig Ferguson was in that production too. He played Brad.
Well, Tony Head was.
It's funny to just think of him in such a different light, you know.
Tony Head was Tim Curry's understudy and the Rocky Horror production and on stage.
I didn't know that.
So like it's not a surprise.
He'd actually done it. Well, honest to gosh. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, he and when Tim Curry left the production to go make the movie, he took over as lead.
So no wonder he was so good.
Yeah. No.
Did any of you guys? I realize this we're veering off. I'll try to make sure. Did any of you guys ever see VR5?
Oh yeah.
He was so sexy in that. He was so different than he was in Buffy. He was like such an
wait.
guy. And in Buffy, he plays such a calm, kind of stolid librarian.
Yeah.
But in VR5, where he was Oliver, he was like daring, and you didn't know what was going on with him. I think he was more versatile than people give him credit for.
Yeah, because in Highlander, he also had a similar type role, where he was. Highlander the series, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
I've seen that, but I don't think I realized it was him.
Yeah, no, he was like he was great in the one episode he was in.
Imagine if they were to ever redo Legend, knowing that Tim Curry had to wear all that makeup.
Well, they just CG it.
Yes, whoever would play him would be like wearing a hippo.
So when I went back to college like 10 years ago, that's where I met Trey Watson, who's going to be on our Totoro episode coming up. But I was hanging out with a bunch of people watching Legend. I'm like, guys, you have to see this scene. And they just showed him the scene where he comes out of the mirror. And
It's such a good scene.
all these guys, all these kids only know like CG movies because they were like, 20 years old and
and they're like, why do
Underworld
pressuring us to watch Legend? I don't.
And they saw that scene where he comes out of the mirror and their jaws hit the floor and just like, this is done in 1985. There's no computers in this, and they're just like, oh, like, because that's such a gorgeous scene. How they did that.
How did they do that? Well, I'm assuming there's going to be a clip about that.
Yeah, basically, they're trying to get us on point, not once but twice, and.
Most are too afraid to see it.
Tim has the ability of going over the top dramatically, and his abilities in terms of being a performer are so amazing, and his face is so animated, and he, when you see him in Rocky Horror Picture Show, you just can't stop looking at him. This guy is a caricature, right? And he's brilliant. So I was thinking, oh my God, I get to put makeup on Tim Curry. I get to make him up as the devil. I said, Ridley, I don't think that this you could have anybody better.
So I met with him. He was really intrigued and said, yes, okay, this sounds weird, but okay, I'll do it. And then little by little, he gradually realized what was going to happen to him.
And I would sort of gradually see drawings of where it was going, And we had terrible negotiations about what bits of me would still be visible. I fought and begged to have my own eyes.
As he said one stage, oh God, you're taking my only thing left away from me. You've taken my eyes away. Because we put in these full scleroid lenses, because by the time you put all the gear on, your head goes from here to here, from here to here. So everything's got to come up. So we put in full scleroid lenses with a nurse. She's like cutting half a ping pong ball in half and sticking it in. And these cat slits, the vertical slits in the eye.
My eyes were these total contact lenses, like a sort of wolf size, the cat size, which was fairly painful to be fitted because basically, they took a mold of your eye and then they stuck it in your eye. And if it hurt, they sort of scraped at it a bit until it stopped hurting.
Initially, it was quite amusing, actually. You'd go, oh, God, complain. And then finally, I remember one day, he was, Jesus Christ, you want me to... And he put him in, and he stood up, and he turned, he faced the mirror and went, oh. he liked the way he looked, finally.
Quite the trooper there. God.
Yeah.
that's a lot of effort.
Amazing, considering how much makeup and stuff, how much of his acting comes over through it.
He's still so expressive, even after all that, right? Fantastic.
Yeah,
and you can still tell it's Tim Curry too, which I feel like a lot of actors, you could completely dress them up, and then it's it's a performance from whatever you're watching, and with Tim Curry, it still is like a Tim Curry performance.
I remember first seeing this movie when I was like 12 years old. And the moment I heard I was like, that's Tim Curry. That has to be. I'm like, I bet that's Tim Curry. And the internet, thank you. I was like,
of course it helps that he says, oh, Rocky.
I will say for credits due, Hellboy, I knew that was Ron Perlman immediately. Not the new Hellboy they refused to acknowledge, though. I was like, I don't even know who that is. I don't care.
By the way, shout out to Ron Perlman's performance in Don't Look Up. So fucking good.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Yes. You ever seen the inside of a man's rib cage?
As a movie that I didn't necessarily enjoy as much as I think some people did. I did enjoy it, but some of the roles I think in Don't Look Up are the people whoever they got to play characters, like Chris Evans. I hated that I found that so funny. when he was in that. But
It's a funny scene. What's like that? Does everything have to be self? Whatever.
no, because
really don't want to get into it.
Because I got what the reference was. It's the
Yeah.
website that Chris Evans put up, and I thought it was hilarious, and I was laughing really hard, and then I was like, I'm way too online.
It works. It works on like it works on like 3 levels. By the way, 'cause I watched it with Lindsay, who had no idea what the fuck that was, and she thought that was hilarious too. So, but anyway, you can still tell it's Tim Curry. He's still acting his ass off, and like honestly, like I don't think it'd be possible to overact in that role, but he is giving it his all.
He does it really well. Yeah,
he had to like
And-
soak
and
in
really-
baths to take off the makeup too. Like it would not come off. He had to like soak, like give us, like they had to like soak. him
Oh,
up
you
with,
mean like
bath.
that? Oh, I thought that. Okay, I thought it was a metaphor. I was trying to figure it out.
He means it actually
I was like, I don't know what that means.
I need to wipe the demon off me.
And then I
Darkness, gotta get rid of it.
I was like, is that like soaking with the Mormons or the? And then I was just like, pop, 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 when it was going down. I was like, oh no, she's literally talking about taking that. Okay.
Soaking tomorrow. Good
I
movie.
would jump on Tim Curry's mattress.
I just love how the make's like, I get to put makeup on Tim Curry, and I'm like,
Yeah.
That was
That's-
great.
Which, by the way, though, looking at it in the context of Tim Curry kind of being a little bit miserable, I think about his role in Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of being the thing he's most known for. Like, it is funny to be like, oh yeah, we cast him because of Rocky Horror Picture Show. Rocky Horror Picture Show. We wanted to put makeup on the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like,
Which it's the complete opposite of like Hunt for Red October, where he's in a bunch of scenes, doesn't speak, and then spoiler, he's the villain at the end.
yeah, that's why I totally forgot he was in Hunt for Red October because we watched that in school one time for some reason. I'm like,
oh, Red October.
That's the substitute teacher is hungover from the night before, so let's throw a movie on decision. Yeah, Hunt for
Yep.
Red October. It's history. It's fine.
that's exactly what happened.
It's
Yeah.
Sean Connery. It's history.
Oh,
That's
God.
how I saw Enemy Mine that way. With what's it, Lou Gossett Jr. and that was an interesting movie to see in like.
I saw
seventh grade
that
or
the
whatever.
same day as I saw Buckaroo Banzai for the first time. It was
I
a
knew,
wild.
I knew you were gonna work it in somewhere with this movie because I feel like this is this month's Buckaroo Banzai.
It probably is.
A little bit. Can we?
I
Sorry.
bet that Tim Curry's a lot happier these days. He's probably finally realizing that yes,
I
am
doubt he's a
Frankenfurter.
lot happier these days. He had a stroke and he's in a wheelchair and his face.
Well, thanks, Forrest. But I'm just saying, like, he's finally like probably come to terms that yes, I'm Frankenfurter. I am darkness. I am that concierge from Home Alone 2: Lost in New York. I am
Not
awesome.
only that, but there are a lot of people who, Muppet saw him first as Long John Silver, or he's now been in so many things and he's done so well.
Nigel
that
Thornberry.
Not everybody even thinks of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he probably gets
def-
happy when he gets
definitely.
talked about something else.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he was almost the Joker, but got sick, and Mark Hamill had to play the Joker.
Man, that would have been a good choice too.
Oh, Batman! How could you? Somebody, one of my friends when I was younger, which I never told them that I was as into Rocky Horror Picture Show as I was when I was like literally like the beginning of my like adolescence. That was like my favorite movie, and I was somebody was like one time was like, hey, you know that guy from Muppet Treasure Island and those movies, that Tim Curry guy? And I was like, yeah, they're like, the way your eyes bug out kind of looks like him. And I remember, I don't think they meant it as a compliment, but I remember taking it as the biggest
Really made you happy.
compliment.
That's really cool. That's funny.
It's like, me, Tim Curry. Oh, fuck yeah.
Gotta bug your eyes out.
Getting back to this wild ass movie.
Wait, which movie are we talking about?
Do
I've
you-
lost
do you
track.
think- And it's been a while since I've seen the director's cut. I don't remember it adding that much in terms to like what they're up to, like in Darkness's Lair. Like I remember there being more of it, but like not really getting a clearer idea of why they're torturing people or why everything's on
It's
fire
chilling.
necessarily. It's
It
just
was.
like this.
They kind of said at the beginning there was something kind of implying the torture was part of the whole darkness thing.
Yeah, they just like it though.
I kind of
think,
felt like
right?
that was.
It's like the whole like I watched Eric the Viking recently, which is a terrible movie. But Tim Curry, no, not Tim Curry. I'm sorry. John
Tim Curry's in that
Cleese.
too.
John Cleese plays this one Viking guy.
That's
he
a
just
Terry
sits there
Gilliam
and he's
movie,
like,
right?
Yeah, it's a Terry Gilliam movie.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, with Eric. What's his name?
Eric Idle.
No, well, I think he's in no. Eric Idle's not in this one.
Michael Palin there too.
I was going
Graham
to.
Chapman
Michael
there.
Palin
We're
is
all
in
the
it.
Monty Python characters.
No. But the guy Bob Roberts was the lead as a Viking.
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins, yes. Sorry. All these Tims in my head. But anyways, no. The whole point I brought this movie up is John Cleese's part, where he's basically his job is to torture people. So he's just like, he's just sitting there bored out of his mind, like, I guess we'll flay you and then light you on fire. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for flaying me.
I gotta tell you, as someone from New York, I also have all these Tims.
Sir, can I have another?
Tims in my head.
I imagine that this
Timberland's
torture
in my
chamber is
case,
much
but,
like that, where Tim Curry is like, oh, we're just going to flay you and then light you on the fire. And he's like, thank you for flaying me first, sir.
Yeah, like seriously, like everyone's like, what? Again, it brings back to like, what was the point of this whole movie? He just falls in love with the princess. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's happening out of nowhere. I remember thinking, like,
my dream is of eternity with you.
He makes it super believable, even though you're kind of puzzled as to why it happened.
Yeah, he's like, it's like as if he does fall in love with her, like, but it's Tim Curry, so he's a good actor. But like,
there's been a scene of something like him looking into a globe and seeing her talk to the unicorn or something, because you don't know why he fell in love with her. There's no reason to it. But he makes
Slim Pickens apparently around there. Do you see the competition? One of them's got a bucket on his head.
Oh, I love the way that you touch that unicorn. I am so enthralled.
Yeah, he's just not into girl boss goblins.
Yeah.
Well, now we know why Una's hiding.
So that's another role. That's another role to touch on in this, because that just seemed like it was. What was that trying to accomplish? The fact that we're supposed to think that everybody wants to fuck Tom Cruise too. Like, I don't.
Again, Slim Pickens.
I actually think that's the best scene in the movie. I don't know why. The scene where she tries to tempt him, that one felt like a fairy tale.
Because that's the kind of crap that fairies get up to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they're not like all sweet and innocent.
They're the best line. I mean, I just that whole little bit. I remember that from when I saw it years ago. I've always thought that was just one of the best moments in the whole movie.
Yeah.
I just wish he bit him.
And it's
what do you think? What did you think fairies do? They bite.
Yeah,
the noose.
And like you kind of he's kind of like game for it, and then kind of like, oh no, like I agree. I thought that scene was good, and I thought, again, if you think about like the temperament of fairies, then like it is very much in character, right? And for Una to be all like, all pissed off about it too, and like acting out, and
I did think.
Meanwhile, everyone is like, hey, we need you to do this thing that's very important, that's gonna like save everything. Oh yeah, well I'm kind of pissed off that like I didn't get to like smooch Tom Cruise and his weird ass non-corrected teeth.
I think that this movie went a little too far with the Fireys. I don't know. The Fiery scene just seemed like they're at. Wait, fuck! Did I just?
The Fireys in this would give it a full extra star. From
Chili
me.
Down with the Fire Gang.
Dude, I would be. Fireys also would
David Bowie's uncorrected teeth.
Right.
Well, he's British. You assume David Bowie's
it's understood.
He did fix it after Labyrinth, though.
Other than tonally, the song not fitting with the Tangerine Dream soundtrack, put different soundtrack to the Fireys' little song where they introduce themselves. First of all, just like everyone else in this movie, everyone assumes that they're known. Like, everyone knows it's the Fireys. It's the Fire Gang, of course. They have a song. Like everyone knows it.
Sing something. I know they got Mia Sarah to sing something.
I think the Fireys. So the Fireys in Labyrinth.
We're talking about Labyrinth, yeah.
No, but so the Fireys in Labyrinth, I think, is an amazing. Like, after learning the fact that Jim Henson originally had them as the Wild Things, and Maurice Sendak was like, I don't want my characters in this movie. Like you're having my characters paw all over this girl. Like I don't. It's a children's book, which makes sense at the beginning when she has Where the Wild Things Are in her room, and then you have like, oh well, in this universe, like the Wild Things characters are like these weird, horny, like group of people that don't know what the fuck is going on. I thought
who throw their heads around,
like salvaging that though with that scene where you're still like, oh yeah, that's like one of the best scenes in the movie is an incredible choice.
Yeah.
This movie kind of feels like there's a lot of decisions that needed to be salvaged with these characters that like they didn't like. It's interesting watching these kind of on back-to-back movie night Fantasia episodes, not back-to-back movie night extravaganza episodes, but because the last one was fucking Mate One.
I missed by like 10 minutes owning a fiery plushie once where the legs came on and off, and I like just got there too late to buy one.
Oh, that's.
I always felt bad.
Girl, where you going with a pillow like that?
That would have been a score. But
I didn't. By the way, I didn't get to say where you going with a head like that in our Labyrinth episode, and that was the best line in the entire fucking movie.
Now you can say it now.
Fine movie.
Just say it in every episode from here forth. Even
girl, where you going with a head like that? I know what we should do. Take off her head.
but so okay. So then let's talk about. So all right. So Una, I think that's perfectly fairy-like behavior, even as annoying as it is for like the plot getting advanced. But like,
and it's quite fairy-like to insist on things being fairy-like. Even when something dire is going on.
Yeah, when there's like...
It really fits the fairy mood.
Yeah, like, have you not noticed what's going on? Like, I don't care. I'm a fairy. I don't give a damn
exactly.
about
That.
There's a lot of that going on in this movie.
Do we feel that, like... I feel like, strangely, with the rest of, like, the crew... with the rest of the pantsless gang, I feel like there's almost too much comedic relief.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's almost too much wacky antics going on with like, I mean, there's like, I get it. There's a character called Screwball in this. Like, I understand. But like, it seems like do you think there's too many wacky antics or is that just me?
I think what I think,
You're just a dwarf racist.
What I think it
too
is.
much wacky antics, or if it's just that once they get underground, the fairy creatures, except for that one scene, don't seem to really have much point anymore. It's like they're flying up in the forest, but once they get down there, you almost think that Jack should have left them behind. I mean, they don't really do anything except for comedy. I don't think there's too much comedy relief, so much as that there's nothing but comedy relief with them. They kind of would be nice if they'd had something a little more like Una's scene to balance it, where they did either a fairy-like thing or something important, or one of them sacrificed their life or something, I mean, it kind of makes it seem kind of frivolous.
This movie kind of seems adverse to kind of killing any character too, which is an interesting, I think, choice, right? Like,
except for Meg, who just gets got like almost immediately after being like,
when you get to the point with Darkness and Lily, it's like, woo, seduction happening, and then Screwball. Like,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I do say that. I mean, there's some good lines that that I vote we run like hell. I second the motion. That's a good line.
Yeah, but that's like you're supposed to have stakes. You're supposed to have stakes in the fact that they seem to be paired together in all these different things, and then they never agree on whatever it is. The guy's like, "Oh, I want to go east. I go west." Like they're kind of always disagreeing. They're like, "Oh, we're teamed up together again," but you don't know who those characters are ahead of time, so you're not like, all right, well, I feel like these are characters that it's funny that they got paired up together because they don't like each other. Like, you know what I mean?
It's like Abbott and Costello in Fantasia or something, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of how I feel it's meant to be, but it doesn't quite get there.
But it's like they've made up their own Abbott and Costello that we have no stakes in, right? Like, or we have no, they're just like...
They also, it's almost like there's 2 or 3 different separate end climaxes to the movie, because they have this goofy sunlight thing they spend a lot of time on.
Yeah.
But they
do like the whole thing with the frisbee shields where they're setting it up, and you're like, the second you see one of them throw it and the fucking guy's sleeping, you're like, one of them's gonna make a big noise. Like you automatically know, and it just play it and like, nope, throw this one, throw that one. It's like, why are you spending so much time on this? We know we're at the fireworks factory.
It's almost a technical It's like when, instead of climbing the glass mountain, you blow it up. I mean, it's almost a technical solution. Yeah. And then in the middle of this technical solution, he picks up the unicorn horn. Right. And you're like, wait, didn't they establish that was like all super powerful? Why isn't getting the unicorn horn and using that to save the day the climax?
Well, we spent all this time just for cock to shield and setting them up. We need to make sure that we have a payoff for it.
Right.
And Tom Cruise uses the sword for the first time and is like, oh, that's the sword. That's how this works.
By the way, I would have done well to forget the entire shield and sunlight thing and have them trying to get the unicorn horn and have the unicorn horn that they went to the trouble of having the story be about kind of be the thing
that would make more sense.
Yeah. I think it would have fit the mood better. The other one kind of doesn't quite fit the mood. At least that's
but also, why do they? So he wants the unicorn horn, the alicorn, right? Like that's the one that they really want. It's a cool word. I like that word. Yeah, we got to get back the alicorn. They only use it once, but whatever.
It's cool.
It's cool word. The one time they did.
Okay, whatever.
Wait, I'm setting something up. So the female unicorn seems to also have a horn. Why don't they want that horn? And then Tim Curry's like, oh, well, this unicorn has the power of creation, which is like, I guess it's the feminist message to this whole thing. But so that horn's trash. The other horn's all powerful. How do they know the difference between the two unicorns? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. They're just like, oh, it's my unicorn dick. Like,
yeah, I thought he was going to kill the second unicorn and then take her horn. I mean, I don't think it was that he didn't care about it. He just hadn't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, but they seem like Blix is like, which I like the name Blix, but Blix is like, well, forget about it. That's a female unicorn. It doesn't matter as much.
Yeah.
And he's like, she still has the power of creation. And it's
that's really good line.
It's almost set that up though. Like there's still just a unicorn running around. Are you just supposed to forget about the second unicorn?
And then there's so he really wants to kill these unicorns. And I understand his idea of wanting to get Lily to kill. I mean, that makes sense. But the time between when they brought the unicorn in and when Lily is in the black dress, why didn't he kill her immediately? I mean, what was he keeping the unicorn around for? You know what I mean?
He's trying to apply his charms.
Powerful if I kill her at sundown or something. You know what I mean?
You can't kill it yet. I haven't gotten laid.
Well, also too, Lily was like, I want to kill the unicorn. Like,
that was after Lily gets the black dress on. But I'm just saying why they brought it in and they just kept it in the dungeon next to the fire. I mean, why didn't they kill it immediately? Look,
it was a big day for darkness. All right, there was like 1,000 years of just sitting around, and then suddenly everything's happening one day. You want to give it a little time.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking
that special
it's the most memeable moment, by the way, when he goes, "Big D," and it's like you think of like girls looking at their DMs on social media, like on any social media app.
I do think that the unicorn, the male and female unicorn power dynamic, that is just sort of like, well, that's how it is. It's like the opposite of like the Dark Crystal thing, where it's like, well, of course I have wings, I'm a girl. Like it's just sort of like what? That's not fair. Like why is that the answer? That's not an answer.
The difference between me and you, I have wings and you don't.
I have horns.
Well, and it's going to seem past shit now, but when there is that fight that happens where Tom Cruise like suddenly is a kickboxer, at least I believe that because he spends all his days squatting, so he's got the leg strength, right?
That's like
I've been using these bad boys for years. I might not know how to use a sword, but I know how to use my goddamn fucking legs.
Yeah, he kicks the shit out of that dude.
All right,
I get the impression though that if a writer had just taken about 10 minutes to sit down and write half a dozen additional lines, the movie would make 85% more sense.
And you would think that would be in the director's cut.
It,
But it isn't. It isn't.
No,
There's just more nonsense.
High on their supply, man. They were high on their own supply, and just like
they wanted to copy.
We need more glitter. We don't need more lines.
Yeah. Up the glitter budget by $20,000.
You know what they did need? A little more cocaine, because I think you could take a couple bumps and you could be like, "Oh, we got to explain this too." And you know what I mean? Like cocaine decisions, they're not. They're both on coke and not on enough coke. And it needs to be balanced out, and they didn't balance it out. Anyway, I've been trying to set this up. My last clip that I have is about the hell set catching on fire, and I think that this is a fun clip in the sense of, so they continued on this for like 10 minutes in this documentary. I clipped 3 minutes of it, but I guess Ridley Scott like realized, hey, I can't really do anything about this. I just have to go play tennis and just live my life while the set burns. So this is kind of a funny clip about, he's just like, whatever. So I don't know how passionate he was about this movie either, but
some people just want to play tennis while the set burns, Forrest.
That's like a good line.
You know what? Ridley fiddled while set burned.
Tennis while set burns.
Curry from the makeup room. Here's darkness for the first time, walking with him on the gravel street of Pinewood, to enter into the soundstage of Darkness's lair for the first time, and to see what actually Ridley Scott's hell looked like was probably one of the most thrilling moments of my entire life. It was mind-blowing. I mean, this huge, beautiful fireplace with these giant, flames that would come out of it, these huge columns and the giant doors, and Tim's chair that's actually, comes half alive, and to see him actually enter into that, it became like one of these things where you actually were living in a fantasy, and actually give you an incredibly strange sort of ethereal feeling, which actually the movie does when you watch it.
No.
The day the set burned down was, I would think, about 3 weeks before coming to the end of using the Bond stage, which was the big Forrest. We'd been using a lot of gas in there for the fire. We just finished the fairy dance. So you have a gas line through to a bonfire. You don't want to have to light it each time. You want to control it. So you just turn on gas bottles and it goes up. Well, I think what happened is the fumes gradually built in the roof, which was 70 feet up. And the roof is 350 feet long and 200 feet wide. But it's filled with a polystyrene structure which looks like a forest. And it's filled with pigeons now, because I've been in there for weeks. And every time I turn a pigeon loose, they don't come back. You don't whistle and they come back. They go into the trees and they live up there, right? So I'm in the editing room and I hear this pitter-patter down the corridor. Somebody shot past the end like a Terry Toon cartoon, came back and said, the Bond stage is on fire. So I said, basically expletive, right? And carried on editing. He said, no, the Bond stage is on fire. So I walked out down the corridor, and as I got to the end, I could see over the buildings this giant column of smoke, like a battleship was sinking, or an aircraft carrier. I walked up to the car park, and there's the whole fire brigade. Then there's already 3 television helicopters up there photographing it. And all my gas bottles were exploding inside the studio, so they had steel corrugated walls. So every time a bottle went, the walls ballooned. It's kind of beautiful. And the fireman said, is this yours? I said, yeah. He said, I think you've lost it. And I said, I think I have, mate. And I went immediately, and because this is what I always do, it's like Zen, I went and played tennis. So Anand Milchan knew in 15 minutes the Bond stage, and this was like 5 a.m. in LA. And Anand had called up saying, where's Ridley? They said, he's got to play tennis. And he said, and there's a long pause, apparently. He said, you know something? He's absolutely right.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go.
That was great. Wow.
So Don,
Because on one hand, you think that's just crazy. On the other hand, really, what else would have helped,
Well, and I think that this kind of this short documentary or whatever kind of sets this up as, this is a genre of film that's going on throughout the 80s. And this is kind of the Ridley Scott version. And like each set is like, oh, I can kind of create these incredible set pieces, which is what he's kind of most known for. And I can kind of, it's a fever dream in some sense, right? Like, it's like, well, I'm going to kind of mix the biblical and the fantasy together and create the story. And it's not necessarily something that I have an incredible, it's not necessarily a movie that I'm like really, really passionate about myself, but everyone's kind of doing it and I want to do my version of it. And when you look at the movie that way, it starts to make a lot of sense, I think.
you can't help wondering if maybe the original script had a couple more scenes that were supposed to be shot there that would have made sense of stuff that they had to leave out because they couldn't really afford to rebuild it.
You can tell that Ridley Scott was not all that passionate about this movie. Because, I mean, if it's a Ridley Scott flick, I expect it to be good. Like, I mean, not saying that movie's not good, but I'm just saying, like, you would expect there to be more from a Ridley Scott film.
Yeah.
And he's just following a trend. Like, he's riding the wave of, like, the 80s fantasy film. So he's like, might as well get this one out of the way.
When this movie kind of failed, when this movie kind of didn't make a lot of money, one thing that I was reading the other day was, like, this is the moment that kind of Hollywood decided we're not really that passionate about making these fantasy films anymore. Now, we did Labyrinth and we did Princess Bride, which are both movies that are in this genre that happened after this. And we had this conversation in a group chat yesterday. But when you look
the
at
extinction event of legend. Yeah.
Well, so when you look at Princess Bride was funded, it was distributed by Fox, I believe. 20% sure, like, so that they did have distribution rights, but the money to make the movie itself came from Norman Lear, which makes perfect sense because All in the Family and Rob Reiner's the one that directed it. But so the funding sources were not like, we're going to put a bunch of money into like, you know, a Hollywood movie. It was more about the fact that Rob Reiner had read the Princess Bride book and liked it a lot and wanted to make a movie based on it. And it's kind of like, you know, he's coming off of like multiple successes where it's like, well, you're like, you can kind of, we trust you to make something like that. The second one is Labyrinth, which similarly, Jim Henson, it's like anybody would, like, we watched the Labyrinth beginning of the thing with Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son, who was like, no, anybody at that point would have agreed to be in a Jim Henson movie. And he's kind of trying to update what he did with Dark Crystal. So it's interesting that,
was Willow before or after?
Willow was actually 3 years after this.
Because Willow is the one that I remember as, you know, they'd done science fiction. They tried to do this huge fantasy and it just never really gelled.
Yeah.
And it seemed like after that you didn't see them as many. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I was reading something that said, hey, this is kind of the death of the Hollywood version of this kind of movie. And at first it was like, well, two of the movies that we've done in the show have come after this. But then you look at like the actual funding sources and who's actually the ones making it. And it's like, well, it's not Hollywood.
Yeah, there's a rationale and a story behind it. And I think that's a good point. 'Cause that was my first thought. It was like, oh no, there's plenty more after this. But it was like, oh yeah, but they all kind of have an asterisk as to like how they got made or like how they got funded.
Hollywood and Princess Bride. Hollywood thinks Princess Bride was a bomb.
Right.
Because financially it didn't do all that well at first. Mainly, I dragged my husband to see it because I'd read the book. And I'm like, you're going to love this. And he looked at the posters and the ads and he was completely convinced he wouldn't because they didn't sell it well at all.
Right.
But it was wonderful. And of course, it built and built. So when they were doing Neil Gaiman's Stardust, he wanted them to mention Princess Bride in the ads ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because he thought people who liked Princess Bride would like Stardust.
That's
and then Stardust is the movie that didn't. Stardust didn't do as well as it could have, right?
Right. Hollywood would not mention Princess Bride because it was a bomb. Yeah. They hadn't caught on to the fact that it had become this cult favorite that everyone can quote.
Yeah, that everyone loves. Yeah,
Stardust did horribly. I remember Gaiman put up on his blog. The good news is we made $3 million in Russia, and the bad news is we made $3 million in America.
I was incredibly like hyped as a kid to see Stardust because my mom was really into Neil Gaiman and was like, this is a movie that everyone's gonna like really love. And I think that it was a fun movie. I don't remember it the way that I remember Princess Bride, which is the same way I think that your husband did, where it's kind of like I remember seeing like having like friends' parents be like, oh, you got to watch The Princess Bride or something, like being at a friend's house. And I was like, that's going to be like the same way that in the beginning that they're like, is this a kissing book? in my head, I was
yeah.
like, this is going to be a kissing movie that I don't like. This is a movie about
But it's
princesses.
so good, you know. It
Yeah,
really
and-
isn't what you think it's going to be.
And notice how like every like
if they
80
would just have put Princess Bride in the ad, they might have got the right audience, you know.
Yeah.
And
Princess Bride and gay Robert De Niro.
And notice how every
caught on.
80s fantasy film is now like a cult classic. Even Legend is considered like has a cult following now. Probably because of Tim Curry, but
mostly because of Tim Curry and the visuals, and but that's enough. That's enough, right?
Well, it's got good visuals. I mean, Tom Cruise, much as we mock him, is a huge star.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Tim Curry did a really good job, and certain parts of it are really good. It just doesn't quite hang together, but it's good enough.
And then Mia Sarah does Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is like the pinnacle like 80s teen like movie.
Yeah.
I know.
That's also one of my favorite 80s movies.
That's great.
Yeah.
We've all taken shots at the script, and none more so than me. But just one factoid here: William Hoitzberg is the writer of this. More known for his novel Falling Angel, which was later made into the movie Angel Heart, which I quite like. That's the dark noir devil in Louisiana. Angel Heart's really good. But I would never think that was written by the same dude as this nonsense.
I wonder if one of the problems is that fantasy, it has its own logic, and if you're not a fantasy person, you don't necessarily pick up on it right away.
Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro both in that, by the way. And
it's a very niche, like people either love it or hate it.
And you see in Labyrinth in the opening, in the early parts, like what is it? Beth, the woman who Lily goes to talk to, saying something like Beth. The things she says are spot on what somebody in Ireland would say, where she's saying the Spriggan and I forget what else she mentions. But so it's like they got certain parts of it right, spot on, but then they just. It's like it was a fantasy story written by someone who doesn't actually write fantasy.
I think Nellie is the
and again, Angel Heart, which is a one of my favorite, I guess they call it a neo noir, but like it doesn't have it's fuck all to do with fantasy. Like it's like something where I wonder if that's like just like it was outside of his wheelhouse or what.
But I think really interestingly, noir has its own. The same way fantasy does, right? Like noir has its own rules and logic. Like when you watch a noir movie, like there's, and I think we kind of we touched on this in multiple ones that we've done, but like there is kind of a logic to it and a mood to it and an aesthetic in a lot of the same ways that when it comes to fantasy, there's a logic to it and a mood and an aesthetic genre wise. So I think it's interesting that someone who does a really good neo-noir movie and book might not necessarily be which when it's a book they call it pulp, but you know that kind of genre might not fully translate into somebody doing
I realize this is dangerous territory, but you mean someone who does a really, really good noir like Brick might not be good for Star Wars?
Brick is great. That's what I'm gonna say.
Brick is really
Brick is awesome.
The genre, absolutely. You know. Anyway, that's not this.
It was a crazy day on Tatooine when all of a sudden I was.
They had done that for Last Jedi. That could have been really good.
Ben Kenobi, I knew that name from somewhere. Who Obi-Wan Kenobi? There was a Kenobi in my neighborhood somewhere. I didn't quite know where.
It would have been much better. Anyway.
I'm gonna let that one slide and we'll move on.
We'll move on.
Because we're never gonna get back to Legend.
It's its own subject.
So setting up the letterbox one-liners, one of the ideas that come up in one of these is that this this movie Legend might be a little more interesting like to someone who isn't sober or at least not totally sober. And
I have no idea what you mean, Forrest.
So like watching it stone cold sober yesterday morning and being like, I don't know what the fuck I'm watching, and then like being a couple beers deep, like being like, oh yeah, like this kind of makes a little bit more sense. Like it's just you only really so it made me start thinking about the fantasy genre in general and like this iteration of it in movies. like the 80s fantasy movie thing, how many of the like in what cases is it really that important that there is a logic to the movie, the 80s movie version of it, right? And like to what degree is it kind of just like, well, you know, maybe someone's going to be high enough that they like watch something, or like drunk enough they watch something and they're going to enjoy it down the line, like it's, which is not the case with I don't think with any kind of fantasy novels. Like fantasy novels are incredibly rigorous about those rules, about kind of creating these like world building, right? When it comes to the 80s iteration of fantasy movies, how important is it to these directors that are kind of creating multi-million-dollar projects, or, you know, like that they kind of keep this consistent? This movie makes it feel like they're like, well, people love fantasy. People have loved it in all of these different iterations movie-wise. Why don't we just kind of make one?
Yeah.
I think it would have done better financially if it had made sense.
Yeah, but it is, you know,
Now,
people
that's a different issue from whether or not it has its own value. And I think what you're really coming back to is what we were saying earlier, which is the visuals are incredible. The movie is so visually incredible, and it has such that it has a certain value, even though it doesn't quite make sense.
Well, and it's almost like it fills in, just like think of like people drunk in a bar where they think of this profound conversation they had, and if you listen to a recording of it, it's, you know, it's like drunk talk, and it's not really that deep at all. But like you're filling in the blanks because there's alcohol involved, and like, you know, maybe that could have, you know, but I'm sure there's like a name for that, but like, you know, that's the problem, because I'm stone cold sober tonight, let me tell you.
No, it kind of comes down to almost this you know, Ridley Scott's version of a genre that he's not necessarily comfortable with. He's not directed anything in, and you can tell that he was intrinsically part of the writing process. Like, I make incredible set pieces. This seems like a no-brainer for me. Why don't we make our version of one of those movies without necessarily...
He'd done Blade Runner, he'd done Alien. It's sort of like he had every reason to think he could do whatever the hell he wanted to do, and it would be fantastic. Every reason.
The reason that people, I think, you know, vibe with fantasy movies a lot of times is because they've read the books, and it's like a treasured book that they've kind of put on screen. And in this case, it's just like Ridley Scott being like, this does well. Let's create our iteration of it.
Exactly.
But letterbox one-liners. Set it up.
Yes, indeed. So this is the signature bit for the show, or my signature bit on this show, which is that Letterboxd, place for film. This is a place where social media site where lovers of film and cinema talk at, with, and to each other about the movies they love. Bottom up democracy. Everyone gets their say. No gatekeepers, no lords, no masters. And I crawl all of the various reviews, good, bad, and the ugly, to find ones that are pithy, funny, poignant, or clever, to display them in roughly a top 10 order here, and for us to comment and or goof on. Why did Tom Cruise grab the armored top, but not the pants?
He's allergic to pants.
That's
clearly.
This
is an absolute truth that I didn't even think about until I was like, you know what? That's a good point.
He's walking around waist deep in snow. Doesn't think about pants.
Yeah. It's just nature boy. You know?
Big brain.
They must think nature means not wearing pants. I mean,
that's not what nature means. I thought the Sierra Club. That's everybody donated money to that for an eventual lack of pants.
I've been doing these nature walks all wrong, let me tell you.
You dip your balls in it.
I probably would have liked this a lot less had I been sober. That's Tobias Olsen with what became a very good conversational topic. Actual friend of mine, by the way. This is
God.
A whole bunch of dirty little people help Tom Cruise find a princess who's being talked to death by the devil. Cruise is extra nimble, as his outfit is pants-free and allows for maximum cross-shot exposure. Jabba.
Wow, this is probably like the lowest rating I've seen.
Yeah, very funny though. Maximum cross-shot exposure is true. There's some like, hey, if that scene was like a quarter second longer, you would see him hanging brain.
Tom Cruise and the Townies.
Talked to death by the devils.
Boy, Lily's outfit was really nice. It was really pretty.
I'm a fan. Theatrical cut. One of the most stunningly gorgeous movies I've ever seen where I don't give a shit about anything that's happening on screen.
And it is like it really it's one of the it is a gorgeous movie. Like
I'm
the
just here for Curry.
Yeah, fair. But it is, the visuals are amazing. Damn, y'all can call me Lil Nas X because I'm about to give Satan a lap dance.
Nice.
Tags 80s, Tim Curry, Heart, After Midnight, and Beautiful 2 exclamation points.
Yeah. I those are accurate tags.
Those are good tags.
Yep.
The best Legend of Zelda movie we're ever gonna get. Matt Carrion.
True.
Fair. We don't get enough goblin-based movies.
After this season, I feel like we have gotten a fair amount of goblin.
Showgirls.
Showgirls.
Wait, wrong kind of goblin.
Speaking of callbacks, Simple Jack.
Yeah.
Diebold Deckers of that one.
You make me happy.
If Sexy Demon proposed me to become his cool goth mistress, I would choose him over a dude who had never showered in his life. R.I.P. to Princess Lily, but I'm different.
That's right.
Ella Vita, speaking truth bombs.
Yeah, I don't know really what Jack was bringing to the table in this movie.
Yeah.
Just lots of exposed legs. I could really pick this movie apart, but I'm just glad that Ridley decided to give the unicorn from Blade Runner another chance and cast it in this movie. There you go. And these are the Letterboxd review one-liners. Follow the show Movie Night Extravaganza, which is Forrest over there. I'm Conan Neutron. Follow Jay, Andy World, and all of our various featured guests and friends that are on Letterboxd as well. Letterboxd, the place for film, not a sponsor.
And what a place it is for film.
But if you want to help us out, you can join our Patreon.
Ah, yes. This is where we talk about the things we are terrible at talking about. Yes.
Yes.
And what else?
If you are, please subscribe to us here on Twitch. And if you have an Amazon Prime account, it costs you nothing. So go ahead and subscribe. Just do it. Hit the buttons.
By the way, patreon.com/movie night extra. And there's a bunch of different levels to it. I haven't been as rigorous about.
I was gonna say, what do you get?
Well, so I
tell us what we get.
So my original thought was I wanted to start doing some video essays and cutting down some of the stuff into, and also giving people a chance to decide movies for the future. If they subscribe that way. Of course, it kind of worked out that on Patreon so far, since I haven't really been promoting it the way that I should, and we have we haven't gotten really the following on it where I think that kind of would warrant kind of creating video essays and that kind of stuff. Like it just, I'd like, because that needs to be funded a little bit better, I think.
We also just do a lot of hard work for these pictures, and it'd be nice to get some compensation.
It would
That's
be.
what I'm saying.
It would be nice if anybody besides me got paid, and it would be nice if I got paid more than like $20 a month. So,
well, we also just put out a lot of regular episodes of this show, which again, totally for free. So doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Subscribe on YouTube as well. Help spread the word. Obviously, we all know this is a fun show. We have a good time here, but it's a fun show. I personally think it's a lot better than a lot of the movie shows out there, and it's worthy of support. What's the other thing? Discord. Andy, is that the other thing we're
Discord
supposed to do?
is coming. We kind of are still setting things up.
Forrest edit that out.
Discord is coming, much like darkness is coming.
There you go. Okay, keep it in. Forrest, keep it in. What else? Hey, what else did we forget there, Kristina? Did we forget anything? Is that good?
No, you promoted the Twitch, you promoted the Patreon, and working on the Discord. All you guys need to do is get a mod, and you'll be good to go.
Yes.
We don't have enough comments lately to be a mod worthy show, but
well, mods are also where you can do your mods can do the commands. You have a set of commands set. So your Patreon, boom, there it is. Your Discord, boom, there it is.
Yeah, Kenzo's really good at that. And when I've been doing my show with him,
he's got all that set up.
Yeah, he's very good at sending that out into the chat because his chats are vibrant, we shall say. Sometimes it's just someone on screen having a verbal fight with Conan, but you know, like
I think it also for this show it depends on the movie. For whatever reason, I think something like this, I kind of expected the chat to be like a little less lively because this is something I think people are like, oh yeah, I'll check that out later. Whereas like I think like when you get some episodes are like, you know, it's on fire, and I think that's, you know, that's just how it goes.
Everybody.
Well, I mean, Matt one had the entire like a lot of people on the Antifada audience listening to it.
Well, even like, you know, I think Dark Crystal was more interesting to talk about than Legend, you know, and it was, and it was lively, but also,
and what a time it was.
It would be disingenuous of us to do an 80s fantasy month and not talk about Legend, though.
Well, I find the failures of it kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I think that, like, looking into the thing, because we had this conversation yesterday and we brought it up already in this episode, but like, and this will, I guess, cue up the final thoughts aspect of this too. It feels like watching this, that this is a well-tread genre, who, interestingly enough, the best known examples of a lot of times are after this. But, you know, the fact that Hollywood kind of, because so much of a movie depends on whether a studio will kind of allow you to make it. And if that's not the case, I mean, it's kind of opening up, I think, at this point, like in 1985, where it's like people can start to make their own things, and then distribution rights are really what you want. Like, you want someone, like, you want to go to these film festivals, and if your movie is good, like things like Clerks can be made independently with no studio involvement, because the studio system's fallen apart. But in this case, a movie like this, or a movie, the fantasy genre specifically, you can't really make a fantasy movie unless you have someone like Norman Lear that's willing to put up like millions of dollars, because All in the Family has been such a big show. Or, you know, Jim Henson, who kind of is able to get funding for, you know, from any source that really exists, because they're like, oh, well, everybody loves the Muppets, everybody loves Sesame Street. You know, what else do you want to make? And you start to have more options. But if you're a director, I think, that kind of relies on studio system money, this movie seems to be kind of the point where people are like, listen, we've had so many fantasy movies, and this one lost so much money that we're kind of skittish about it. And it really comes down to whether studios are skittish about it. Like, if you don't have that amount of power, if you don't have Jim Henson money, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's true too.
It's almost a shame that we actually originally had Willow on the docket, and we cycled around so much we actually cycled it off. But it's interesting. That's almost like the cousin to Legend to a certain degree. Although I think a far better movie.
Right. Far better, superior cousin.
I haven't seen
the successful cousin.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Willow. But when I was looking for movies, because we hadn't cycled it off yet, when I was doing the intro and putting that together, I remember looking at with like Willow's trailer, like in clips and stuff, to see if I could, you know, incorporate that, and being like, this movie does not look as
it's Ron Howard directing, and Ron Howard is just vanilla. So like, it's not a bad fantasy movie with the most milquetoast director in the world on it. So you're not going to have Legend. Like, Legend.
Are you saying it's the fantasy equivalent of Hillbilly Elegy?
Yes.
Not bad, but it's just not really good either.
Yeah.
Like 2 super good lines, and the rest of it's just okay.
Yeah, you know, where you know, Tim Curry is just like, you know, is just so incredible in this movie that makes up for everything this film lacks.
Which is a lot, to be clear. A lot.
But like, Val Kilmer is wonderful in Willow, but he's just not as good as Tim Curry is in Legend.
Yeah. In fact, the best thing in Willow is Billy Barty, who played, I think, was it Screwtop?
Yeah.
Screwball? So he's in Legend and in Willow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Johnny Depp or Robert Downey Jr. got Tom Cruise's role?
Wow.
Because they were up for the role. from what I was doing, like my crash course.
Yeah, and think this would be young.
It would have been a whole different type of movie.
Yeah,
but it's
very young Robert Downey Jr.
It's been like was it
before SNL?
Yeah, this would have been like.
I'm just imagining Robert Downey Jr. now as Iron Man, but with no pants, going, "Look, I'm in Legend."
I don't quite know how to use weapons, except these incredibly technologically advanced weapons that I'm getting paid by the U.S. government to build. Besides those weapons, not a lot of weapons.
And Johnny Depp would have been around Edward Scissorhands time, right? So
No, this is it. No,
this would be right after Elm Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Oh man.
So he would
that's
be ready.
That's a whole different movie.
This is before 21 Jump Street.
In
Yeah.
Elm Street.
Honestly, I'm trying to. He probably could have pulled it off.
No, Elm Street was
It would have
about
been
as good as Tom
really
Cruise.
good, but it would have been quite a different move.
Yeah.
Elm Street was
Might have been good.
84, right?
Yeah, this is 85.
This is 85. Yeah, so that's actually fascinating. All right, so starting with you, Jagi. So we do a final thought segment where it's whatever you didn't think to say during this, or whatever you wanted to bring up, or any kind of concluding ideas about this movie.
Well, I think actually I got to everything I had to plan. I really think that it's one of these movies that's both kind of awful and kind of beautiful. And thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, Kristina. Not different than Kristina. That was Kristina.
That's the less successful cousin.
Yeah, exactly. Spelled with a C. Anyway, again, this is Ridley Scott's just attempt at fantasy, and he really didn't put all his heart and soul into it outside the sets. Tim Curry's what saves this film. I give it, out of like alicorns, 7 out of 10. Surprisingly.
Yeah, that's still higher than what the amount of alicorns I would give it. I would yoink those alicorns away. Conan?
Look, this is a gorgeous piece of near nonsense. I mean, the visuals and design and direction are all pretty top notch, and the story is perfunctory, incomprehensible, and ill deployed. So, Kristina said it. Tim Curry as Darkness is exactly as awesome as you hope it's going to be if you've never seen this, and as you remember if you have. Vamping, spanning time, like just badass in every possible way. Young Tom Cruise is fine, perfect for the role. Mia Sara's good. The Tangerine Dream score, I can't say enough good things about it. Like they did Thief. There's a bunch of scores that they did around this time. It's always interesting, and it's way better than the version that's in the director's cut, which some people think is a better movie. I would say it's not enough to watch, frankly. I will say that this is a fascinating artifact of its time, and despite it being flawed in all these very, very interesting ways, like it's not bad. It's bad, but it's not bad. Like it's worth watching. It's a perfect movie to have on in the background because you don't need to give a goddamn about the story.
Which also makes it incredibly interesting. This is the episode we have someone that actually writes fantasy. We're like, can you come on for the worst written episode or the worst written movie?
The dude did Angel Heart, which is awesome. Angel Heart is great. If we do a noir month, I'm gonna crowbar that movie in if I have to.
We're definitely gonna do noir month because that's like one of my favorite genres of anything. But Andy.
Oh man, I didn't get to tell the story about how I saw this movie, which was I never saw any of the advertising, which probably says something about why the movie was a flop. Because I don't, I was a kid. I would have loved to, loved everything about this movie. It's got little people. It's got Tim Curry. It's got, swords. It's checked off like a bunch of things that I need for a movie.
Little people, how could you?
and what I would have been 8 at the time, I think, 7, something like that. And anyways, my dad took me out on a school night to see this movie too, which was kind of surreal. To be able to see this movie in the theater, and we were like the only people in the theater. We went to the fancy Rich Mall to see this too. But I must have had a good report card or something. I don't know. But anyways, it was, and I absolutely loved the movie at the time. And I spent most of my time in college playing this in the background while working on paintings and drawings. So, it's always something good. And I will say, for the visual people, the director's cut is much prettier looking than the theatrical cut, and that is the only thing it's really gotten right. Over everything else. I have not finished watching the director's cut because my internet's been slow all day. My kids were home, so there goes my internet speeds.
Well, you look great on the video. What I would say is,
Are you not the most loathsome of my goblins? And is your heart black and full of malice and hate?
and I would say, black as midnight, black as pitch, blacker than the foulest witch.